Welcome to Undercurrent. I'm Angela McDonald, your host for this evening. After years of discussion, the Barnett government has been consulting with the local Noongar groups within Western Australia. A landmark decision has been made with the signing of a treaty, but not all Noongar people within those clans feel that they were fairly consulted. I find out what it was they had to say. The West Australian Barnett government has been in a series of negotiations and agreement with the South West Land and Sea Council. After a lengthy period of negotiations, a treaty has been signed. The Noongar people have been recognised as the traditional owners of a substantial amount of land in Western Australia. But through this agreement with the Barnett government, land use has now been relinquished in that the native title owners have given up their rights in exchange for this agreement with the Barnett government. There were 6 claim groups, and within those groups there are more family groups that didn't actually have a say to these negotiations.
On behalf of 4 individuals who are from the Noongar people of the southwest of WA, commenced proceedings in the High Court of Australia challenging Indigenous land use agreements that the state of WA has reached with the South West Land and Sea Council Aboriginal Corporation, and the effect of the registration of those agreements with the Native Title Tribunal will be to forever extinguish our clients' native title rights. The purpose of these proceedings are to invalidate those agreements so that that extinguishment will not take place. In our view, there's an important issue for the High Court to determine, and that is as to whether the individual registered native title claimants ought to have been a party to these agreements over and above any agreement from the Aboriginal Corporation.
With the deal, people were saying, oh, we'll get a lot of money. But yeah, who's going to get the money? The same people who had it before. Plus, we're not going to get anything for 10 years, no infrastructure. We need infrastructure now. We need healing centres. We need places where people can go, young people and old people. I might need to go somewhere if I get kicked out, but they don't want to do any of that, or they're not allowed to by the government. So what sort of deal is it? And I do understand native title, the effect that under the native title we don't have a lot, but why then offer nothing?
We were quite shocked in reading the template, and to see that it was 850 pages, and there's more than 35,000 Noongar people in Noongar country. And I was one of the first Noongar people that's seen it. No members of we've since found out that no members of the working group party had seen it, and very few of the elders as well seen the deed. And it's 850 pages. It's a legal document that none of us seen before December, and only just 2.5 months prior to the authorisation meetings. I was quite overwhelmed and disgusted as a Noongar woman to see in there that the deed required me to surrender my rights, my land, and any rights to ever appeal the government on the Native Title Act, as well as all other acts that caused grief, hurt and pain to our people.
Because I'm a no voter, I'm against this because the people weren't involved, and lots of family groups weren't even informed and weren't asked to participate. And one of the things that I've been told, because I'm a no voter, I will not be entitled to any of the support or assistance through this no deal. And I have a grandson who has a disability, a severe disability, and yet I'm told by these people that I will not receive any help at all.
Because of what would happen if the High Court were to find these agreements invalid, that's an issue for the Noongar people and the state of WA. As lawyers, our job has simply been to represent our clients and ensure that their rights are upheld. I suppose the most disappointing part of this process for us has been to find that no matter where our clients looked, they couldn't find anyone to assist them, whether from the private sector or the government sector or from their own Aboriginal representative bodies. They couldn't find anyone to assist them to, I suppose, check to make sure their rights were being upheld. My forte is winning business disputes. It's certainly not in native title matters, but nevertheless, we have felt compelled that they couldn't be left without any representation at all, whilst their rights were to be forever extinguished.
I'm Angela McDonald and this is Undercurrent. A new era in art has come about in Leederville, Western Australia. Functional art, taking advantage of the sun and solar energy through flowers. Laura Smith reports.
Have you ever wandered through many of Perth's business or office buildings and saw a patch of grass or maybe even some flowers? It wouldn't be that unusual, would it? But how about 3 6-foot-tall solar power generating flowers? We're in West Leederville today to find out all about these new functioning art pieces.
My name is Zsolt Zombori. I'm from Hungary, but people call me George, so that's much easier.
All right, and tell me, first of all, when were these flowers built?
It was just finished in December, the first day of December, and we just completed it after having something like 6 months of preparation work. So finally we made it happen.
And what's the function of these flowers?
These flowers are made to be attracting people's attention to understand that this building basically is a zero carbon energy building, meaning that we have 100 kilowatt solar PV on top of the building. But unfortunately, when people walking by, no one can see that. Basically, these flowers are collecting the energy from the sun. They are able to store it in batteries, and during the nighttime, there is an option to run the LED of the building, and we are able to run the water feature of the building 24 hours as well.
And what's the sort of public reaction been so far?
Well, to be honest, I only could experience the first 2 weeks. People were walking by, they were reading the messages. You can read underneath certain things that you might be very experienced when you read those sentences. And I'm sure people are surprised what type of strange animal could that be along the street.
And do you think this is going to generate more interest, not only in renewable energy, but renewable energy as an art form as well?
Well, I would say this is one of the first public art which is made of basically custom designed solar panels, and one of the purpose of this was to prove to people that solar doesn't have to be ugly. It could look not only rectangular aluminum framed something, but they could look pretty different, and this is one of the examples that people fantasy can be just flying over.
Yeah, I suppose when most people think of renewable energy, they think of wind farms, and a lot of people find them ugly. So do you think that this could also create a sort of a fusing between, there'll be more pieces like this popping up all over the place?
I'm 100% sure, because this technology has improved a lot in the last decades, and nowadays you are able to produce solar panels which are colorful, like it can be green, it can be purple, you might be surprised, but any shape as well. And I think this new technology should be implemented more and more, and especially in Australia where the sun is pretty dense. So I think this is a great future for all of us.
You know, we have a cactus in the middle of Perth city centre, which costs quite a lot of money and has no function whatsoever. How would you combat that? What's your reaction to these art pieces that cost an incredible amount of money but do nothing, whereas you have one here which is multi-purpose, really?
If I remember, it was only 1.2 million, but anyway, it's pretty high. I think I was trying to convince some of the mayors around Perth that public art could have a different function, and one of the message could be, or the different layer of a public art could be somehow educate people that we have sustainability as well, and we have new forms which can have functional advantages or benefits as well. So I am very optimistic that maybe some of these council members will be more welcoming these type of ideas in the future, and I'm ready to take any new ideas and make them happen in any of these councils.
What has your relationship been like with the Perth City Council so far?
I was lucky to be participating on some of meetings, and I was able to give a short lecture regarding how solar trees and solar flowers could be attracting more tourists in Perth. And I think I visited the Deputy Mayor of Perth as well a few years ago. And I think I'm very happy now because some of the first examples have been realized, and I think he would have more confidence now to see how it can fit into the environment of Perth and how we can innovate Perth in a very new way.
Definitely. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Well, the nice experience was when this one was completed. We got a phone call from the council, one of the councillor of Cambridge, and she just congratulated us, and she felt ashamed that it should be in the middle of some more pedestrian zone and more people could visit this one. So I'm very happy if that can happen one day, that more and more popular locations could have something, this kind of experience in the future.
Zolt is hoping that with designs like his, more people in the council and in the community can turn green. Not just green with envy, but also green in their energy consumption. Reporting for Undercurrent, I'm Laura Smith.
In the past, we were immunised. We thought it was just the thing to do for ourselves and the community. Today, though, parents are making the decision not to immunise their children. So what does that mean for our community? Juanita went to the streets to talk to people to find out their opinions.
Should childcare benefits be taken away from parents who choose not to vaccinate their children? Today, we hit the city of Perth to find out what people think about this. Are you aware that as of January this year, childcare benefits will be withdrawn from parents who do not vaccinate their children?
Yes.
Their children?
I am, yeah. Yeah, I've heard of that on TV and whatnot.
Yeah, I'd heard something about that, or my wife had, yes.
No, I wasn't aware.
Australia signed this human rights law which states that childcare benefits should be given to children with working parents. Do you think that they are not complying to this treaty if they take away the childcare benefits?
It does sound like they're not complying, but I also think for children's safety it's an important measure.
I think that if people don't abide by the things that are set up to protect children and other families, then they have to accept the penalties that go along with that.
If parents work, and they should be entitled to it.
Chickenpox and shingle vaccination have proved that it could lead to keratitis, which is a permanent damage to the eye. Do you think that with such consequences, parents should still be given a chance to choose whether they want to vaccinate their children?
It's up to the parents whether they should get that treatment or not. Whether it comes with a side effect is entirely, the choice should be theirs.
I personally agree with vaccination. I'm a scientist and I can't see any reason why you wouldn't, but you do have to be given the choice.
I think the chance of getting something like that, which is non-lethal, is an acceptable risk for something that could save the children's lives.
In New South Wales, laws have been put in place where children who have not been vaccinated are not allowed to be enrolled in a childcare. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I agree because you're passing potential germs and harmful diseases onto other children who've had that vaccination.
Absolutely, without question, I agree with that, because if I want to put my child into care, I want to know that he's protected.
I mean, if it was my children going to a childcare where other kids weren't vaccinated, I probably wouldn't be happy either. So I think it needs to be a generalised thing where everyone gets it done.
I agree with that because, if the parents opt not to vaccinate their children and they go to a daycare, they're quite serious diseases that could be spread through the whole centre quite rapidly.
I don't know. I don't know what the correct solution to it is. I think it's dangerous, this new trend of people not vaccinating their children, but at the same time they shouldn't be, children shouldn't be penalised for their parents' choices.
If there was a medical reason that prevented them from being vaccinated, then I don't think they should be excluded, but there should be some sort of policy in the childcare centre so that if something arose where there was something spreading, that child could be excluded straight away, because if they've not been vaccinated then they're quite susceptible to catching it.
I'm Juanita Azman, reporting for Undercurrent.
Stay with us on WTV. We'll be back after a short break with more Undercurrent. Mandatory detention has many people within Western Australia very concerned at the moment. The High Court has made a ruling that over 200 people will be deported back to Nauru. A rally was held recently in Perth, and Undercurrent reporter Warren finds out more.
Over 500 protesters have gathered at the St. George's Cathedral to stand and support the 267 refugees who are due to be deported back to Nauru. This comes after the High Court ruled that offshore detention is legal.
We have decided, as an Anglican cathedral here in Perth, to join the movement around Australia and to offer sanctuary to asylum seekers who are in imminent danger of being sent back to Nauru. And as a follow-up to that, and to let the government know that there's a very large movement growing, we're having a rally to say, let them stay, as you can hear.
Since these refugees came from Nauru to begin with, what is wrong with sending them back?
Well, firstly, we think that it's wrong, period. Offshore mandatory detention is wrong, inhumane, and causing irreparable damage. What's particularly bad in this case is that all of them have been allowed to leave Nauru for medical reasons, either themselves or family members. 33 of them have been born onshore in that time. So in other words, they're going to be sent back to a place that we know from every agency that's been allowed is called hell on earth. It's a terrible place to go. So the place that caused them trauma, they're being sent back to. So it's taking the inhumanity to another level.
If Nauru is apparently so good, then why is there complete lack of transparency? Why have any independent medical reviews of Nauru not occurred? And from what I've heard, they were willing to speak up, have described it as hell on earth.
Alex Bainbridge of the Socialist Alliance says that anti-refugee sentiments are not new and have always been prevalent throughout history.
Every grouping of refugees or even migrants, not refugees, that have come to Australia have suffered controversy and bigotry and racism on their first arrival. And over a period of time, that has become less, and those people have been welcomed into the Australian community. And you think about the Greek and Italian migrants after World War II, you think about Vietnamese migrants in the 70s and 80s. Those people are very much part of the Australian community today, and exactly the same thing would happen if there was a compassionate and fair approach to the current refugees arriving in Australia today.
What happened to old Australia that used to take in all the Vietnamese refugees, used to take in European refugees, and who cared about the people of the world? We can be that again. Of course, they talk about legality, and they talk about all the laws that they've made, and it's such a stretch that they've made it legal for them to send them back there, and all these policies that they've created of Operation Sovereign Borders. Sure, they might be legal, but they're morally bankrupt, completely and utterly morally bankrupt. And I think if the public can show them that this isn't what we want, then they won't be able to get away with things like this.
The protesters are calling for the Prime Minister to show compassion and allow the refugees to remain on shore.
We need Malcolm Turnbull and the leaders of our country to stand up on this issue and to show true leadership to the Australian community, the Australian people, and the people of the world.
The reality is that everyone that's held in Nauru, everyone that's fleeing their lives and is on boats, are no different. They're human beings. They're exactly like my 4 children and my wife. This is my family. I can't imagine how destroyed I would be to find that they might be drowning, they might be processed in some secret location offshore, they might be held in detention. They're welcome in Australia, and I say that every refugee fleeing for their lives is welcome in Australia.
The problem with Australia's offshore and, in fact, detention regime is that it locks up innocent people. People that have committed no crime get locked up in these detention centres. That policy has got to end. I think it's the role of the church to speak out against injustice whenever, wherever and however it occurs. We see this as an injustice. Certainly our founder, our leader, Jesus Christ, was killed for being deemed political, for standing up against oppression and injustice in his time, and many of the great leaders, Martin Luther King and many, many others, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who stood in non-violent protest, have upset governments, and sometimes that's necessary.
This is Warren Masalamani for Undercurrent.
Australia Day celebrations are attracting more crowds every year, but some taxpayers are saying, is this money well spent? Is it money just going up in smoke? The City of Fremantle has about 500 homeless people, and some of the residents are asking, would this money be better spent on supporting the homeless? I had a talk with the Mayor of Fremantle and asked him this question: is the money going up in smoke?
On the 26th of January this year, the City of Fremantle held the Indian Ocean fireworks display. Thousands flocked to the city to watch these fireworks for a good 20 minutes. There were vantage points all around the city. But some residents are asking, is this the best way to spend taxpayers' money? Was it money that just went up in smoke as the issue of homelessness grows within the city? Good morning, Mayor. Thank you for joining us today for Undercurrent for WTV.
Very nice to be with you. Thank you.
So Australia Day celebrations, they're very important for people. And how important were the Indian Ocean fireworks this year?
Actually, it was another big year. I think it started off as a cracker show a few years ago, and it'd be fair to say it's got bigger and bigger each year, where we estimate around about 50,000 people from not just Fremantle, but obviously the greater area.
So you've mentioned that it's not cheap. About how much does it cost to put the fireworks on?
So we put about $144,000 ourselves, and the City of Coburn contribute $25,000. So that's for the whole day. No, it's not just for the fireworks, that's for the concerts and all the traffic management and the citizenship ceremonies, all those things together.
And do you think those sponsors that participated in the Indian Ocean Fireworks Day would be happy to share some of that money toward homelessness programs?
It's a good question. We haven't asked that to them, and I guess we haven't made that approach yet. But I actually do think that certainly, I think that people in Fremantle would be happy to do that. And I think on a day when we're kind of celebrating what it is that makes us Australian and reflecting on our culture, and in many ways the egalitarianism, that kind of fair go for all approach that we talk about in Australia, maybe that then is actually a really great way of leveraging off that to provide more funds towards the key services that can support homeless people.
So what sort of programs do you have going on around Fremantle during the year?
More recently, we've also just started a small change collection program where we're working with basically collection points where the city's matching dollar for dollar money that the community will donate towards homelessness programs. St Patrick's, who run some really great programs out of their community support centre in Fremantle, will be the main beneficiary of those funds. And we hope through that to be able to expand some really good programs that are already operating. And one of those is the Street to Home program, where it's one-on-one working with people who are on the streets and working with them to actually really get them back into a house and off sleeping rough, which is a major issue.
Would you prefer to have a roof over your head, or you're okay sleeping out?
No, I'd prefer to have a roof, but yeah, and as my sign says, trying to get a place.
So you've got to qualify with St Patrick's before they put a roof over your head?
Yeah.
And what qualifies a person to be chosen by St Patrick's?
I don't know, to be honest. They're just very picky. So, yeah, that's the hard part. I don't want to leave Fremantle, but yeah.
And are there lots of homeless people in Fremantle?
Yeah, at least 500 I can think of, like, approximately, yeah. There's probably about 500 in Fremantle. Yeah, like, doing this I meet people, I talk to people. As I said, there's no criminal element. Basically, Brad Pettit's banned it because it's antisocial, but do I look antisocial? I read a book. No one has to give me anything. Like, yeah.
And you said it's monotonous. Is the boredom something that really gets to you after a while?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Probably shouldn't say this, but I've been suicidal quite a lot over the years, and been in and out of mental hospitals because the government just won't help. And yeah.
So it's more you feel like you're not achieving what you could in life?
Yeah. I feel I haven't been given a chance in life, yeah.
So people saying that that's money that has gone up in smoke, that could be a fair analogy.
Yeah, look, and I think that's a fair criticism. I would say though, the reality is a city like Fremantle, our budget for the year is almost $100 million. So whilst we do spend over $100,000 on the fireworks, even if we were to keep doing that, there's no reason why we can't find other ways we could fund better services and work with St Patrick's and others in other ways. So we can do both, but we are nevertheless having that discussion as to whether the fireworks are something that we will continue with into the future.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Western Australia is the land of opportunity, and when you take that opportunity and mix it with talent and hard work, anything's possible. John Palermo is a young entrepreneur, chartered accountant, Rich List for 2014 and 15, and now a philanthropist. I had the pleasure of meeting John and finding out how this inspiring young man has succeeded so well with his future.
Young, savvy, innovative and a very successful businessman. Tonight on Undercurrent, we're speaking with John Palermo.
Look, there have been a few accolades along the way. I'm very proud of that. And it's great to be recognised, I guess. Some of the WA awards, the 40 under 40, and some of the awards that I've got that are industry based are very much a recognition of the effort that you've put in over the years. So it's great to receive them.
So, born and bred in Western Australia?
Always been in WA. Born here, educated here, and worked here. So,
and how do you view Western Australia?
I love Western Australia. I think we're a very promising state. I think we've come a long way and we've got a long way to go. But Perth is a great place because it's large enough to make a difference and small enough to be compact enough to know everyone, I think, and really connect your people that you know.
Money makes the world go round. That's something that you've really grown to understand the techniques of.
Look, no romance without finance. I think money is important because it pays for the philanthropy and for the causes that you want to support. So essentially, everybody has an idea on philanthropy and where does the money go. You can only make so much money before you have to start doing good by other people. If you're lucky enough to be in a position where you have means, then I think you've got an obligation to help others. Look, there's the dictionary definition. My definition of philanthropy is something that is consciously meaningful to you. So whether that's time to an organisation, money or other, something that means a lot to you and you're giving that away. Certainly there are plenty of volunteers out there and there are plenty of financial supporters out there, but that's what philanthropy is to me.
How do you see the youth of today?
The youth of today, they're great. I think they have their issues, but they had their issues 50 years ago. I think the youth of today are well informed, very well connected. If you capitalise on that, the world will be a better place. You think back 30 years ago when we were kids, we didn't have the social media connection, we barely watched the news, we went to school, we came home, we played in the park and that was it. Certainly now the opportunities available for the youth are much greater, but in the scheme of things they're available to everybody. So if you're smart, and the question was raised earlier about should philanthropy be part of some education program at schools, and I think it absolutely has to be. But we're going to get some organic growth in that area anyway, because if you talk to kids now at secondary and even universities and even primary schools, they are aware of it. They know what the score is, they know what they have to do, and they're encouraging their parents, not the other way around.
And how did you first start getting involved in investment?
In investment? That's an interesting question. I'd bought passive assets because you work for your money and I wasn't keen to lose it. So, and look, property is a great saving strategy at the end of the day. If you get some capital growth, brilliant. So it was my focus was always property. So I started in residential property and then evolved from there.
And Western Australia, how far, where are we going to go?
Interesting question. I don't know. Certainly my view is that, boom and bust is inevitable. That happens, and certainly everyone now is saying, oh, we're in a bust cycle and, the mining boom has ended and that sort of thing. It's just a new state of normality. So as long as we get used to that and we keep our head on our shoulders, I think WA's got great prospects. We're the largest state. I think agriculture has a long way to go. So look, there's prosperity. We're a great country. So it's only upwards from here.
I'm Angela McDonald for Undercurrent.
You've been watching Undercurrent for WTV. Thanks for your company. We'll see you next week.